You're about to learn everything you need to know about factoring a simple trinomial. In fact, we're going to look at all of these examples, and I will teach you how to factor, which is the easy part, and where you might go wrong. Let's have a look. First of all, what is a simple trinomial? A simple trinomial has an a value of 1, so that means you will not see a number in front of the x squared. And what is factoring? Factoring, when it comes to quadratics, is writing it in factored form, which looks like this. X plus something times x plus something else in brackets. So what is that plus something? Okay, so in order to find out, but we look at the last number. C is 6 and B is 5, right? Last number is 6, middle number is 5. What we need to do is find two numbers that multiply to 6 and add to 5. Now, in this example, it's pretty simple. You guys can probably see it right away. But the way I do it, because sometimes it does get more complicated, is I list all of the pairs of numbers that could multiply to 6. So that would be 1 and 6, 2 and 3, and then if I keep going, I'm just going to get 3 and 2 and 6 and 1, which is the same thing. So you probably already guessed it. It's the two numbers are not 1 and 6, they're 2 and 3. And what do I do now? Literally, all I do is I take this number and put it in with my x. Okay, so when I factor x squared plus 5x plus 6, that factors to x plus 2 times x plus 3. And you can do a quick check by expanding. Okay, so that's all you have to do. You have to find two numbers that multiply to the last number, also known as C, and add to the middle number, also known as B. So if it's that simple, why do so many people make a mistake on their math quiz? Well, that's because you get thrown off when it looks a little bit different than how you see it for the first time. So let me show you a few examples where people go wrong and how to always get it right. The next example we're going to look at looks like this. 3x squared plus 6x plus 3. And now you might be thinking, okay, I know what to do. Find two numbers that multiply to 3 and add to 6. Oh, wait a second. No such numbers exist. Well, actually, I have a number out in front. That makes it not a simple trinomial, but a complex trinomial. I cannot do the same steps when I have an a value in front of my x squared. And actually, it's a little bit different, kind of the same, a little bit different, and I have a video about that separately. But this is a little bit of a trick because I always need to check if I have greatest common factor. Do you guys see a greatest common factor between these three terms? I hope so. That greatest common factor is 3. Okay, so now after I factor out 3, I will have x squared plus 2x plus 1. So my C value is 1, my B value is 2. Now let's find two numbers that when you multiply them, you get 1, and when you add them, you get 2. Well, I think that's pretty simple. I don't even need to write it out. That number is 1 and 1, because 1 times 1 is 1, and 1 plus 1 is 2. So when I write it out in factored form, I will write 3 times x plus 1 times x plus 1. Now, this is a little bit interesting. It's a little bit of a special one because when these two factors are the same, usually on a math quiz for full marks, what you need to do is write 3 times x plus 1. Since these are the same, you write it as x plus 1 squared. And this is actually an interesting trinomial called the perfect square trinomial that when you factor, you get something squared, and it's actually going to come in handy a little bit later. So yeah, that's pretty cool. But now let's have a look at another example that some people might find a little bit challenging. Next example that we're going to factor is x squared plus 2x minus 8. And again, when I factor, I want it to look like this. X plus something and then times x plus something else. I'm just going to tell you up in front, people get thrown off by a negative when they have to factor. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's just write out our C is negative 8 and our B is 2. And you might be thinking, oh my gosh, I can't think of anything that multiplies to 8 and adds to 2. Well, that's because it has to multiply to negative 8. So let's start as we started before and write out our factors of 8. 1 and 8, 2 and 4, and there's nothing else. So none of these when I add them, give us 2. However, none of these, when I multiply them, give us negative 8. That's because one of the two numbers, when I multiply them, has to be negative. And because they have to add to positive 2, I know that the bigger number out of the two will be positive, and the smaller number out of the two will be negative. Okay, so I'm just going to write a negative in front of the smaller of the two numbers. So negative 1 plus 8 will not give me positive 2, but negative 2 plus 4 will. So now I have my two numbers, and literally all I need to do is write it into my factored form. So x minus 2, x plus 4. And you could write that in either order as long as the negative stays with the correct number. And again, you can just expand to double check. And now we're going to look at an example that is similar but different. X squared minus 8x minus 9. Again, this throws people off because there are negatives in this problem. Because your brain starts to think, okay, multiply to 9, add to 8, oh my gosh, that is impossible. However, we just start at the beginning. C is negative 9, B is negative 8. And let's start with listing our factors of negative 9, but I'll just start with 9. So it could be 1 and 9 or 3 and 3. And there's nothing else. Okay, so now because they multiply to negative 9, I know that one of these has to be negative, and because they add to negative 8, I know that the bigger number out of the two has to be negative. Okay, so in this case, 1 and 9, the bigger number is 9, so I would put negative 9, and I have 3 and 3, it's not going to be those ones. So 1 and negative 9, if I add them, I get negative 8. So that's how I know that these are my two numbers. And when I factor it, I get x plus 1, x minus 9. And you can go ahead and expand this on your own to check if you got it right. So now you're probably getting the hang of it, and you're like, okay, when I see a negative, I know that one factor is positive, one factor is negative. If that middle number is negative, the bigger of the factors will be negative. If that middle number is positive, the bigger of the factors will be positive. And then you see another problem that looks like this, and again, it completely throws you off. X squared minus 7x plus 10. And you're thinking, hold on a second, there's a negative, I think I know what to do, but it's different than the ones before. Again, we're going to write out our C value, that's 10, and our B value is negative 7. Okay, so something seems off. However, I'm just going to start by writing out my factors of 10. So it could be 1 and 10, 2 and 5, and nothing. How am I going to make these add to negative 7? Well, I can already see, okay, I have a 2 and a 5. That's going to give me a 7, but not negative 7. Now, you have to remember that a negative times a negative also gives you a positive. So it could be that both of these are positive, but if they have to add to a negative value, then both of these have to be negative. And negative 2 and negative 5 give me negative 7 when I add them and positive 10 when I multiply them. So when I factor it, it's going to look like this. X minus 2 times x minus 5. And again, if you want, you can expand it. Great, that is how easy it is to factor a simple trinomial. Here are those rules again, so you don't forget them. You can take a quick screenshot and you can practice your work. By the way, if you are getting problems with complex trinomials where you cannot factor out that a value to make a simple trinomial, I have a separate tutorial about that here. And that's it. I will see you next time.